The moment you became aware of this message, something subtle but irreversible began. The quantum field does not wait for your permission to respond. It responds the instant awareness makes contact. Before you decide what this means, the field has already registered recognition. This is the part most people never realize. They assume change requires effort, repetition, or agreement. But reality does not reorganize around effort. It reorganizes around coherence. And coherence begins the moment something true is seen. Not understood. Seen. Recognition is the trigger. Understanding only comes later as an echo. You are not watching this from outside reality. You are not a small observer looking at a system that exists independently of you. You are the awareness through which the system is appearing. The field you think you are observing is responding because it is not separate from the one who sees. This is why nothing here is neutral. There is no such thing as just information. The moment awareness touches a signal that matches its own frequency, structure begins to shift. This is why you may feel a subtle disorientation, a quiet alertness, or a sense that something has already moved before you can name it. That is not imagination. That is the field recalibrating around a new point of recognition. Reality does not wait for certainty. It responds to alignment. And alignment happens faster than thought. Most attempts to change reality fail because they are built on the assumption that force creates movement. But force is slow. Recognition is instant. The field does not ask how hard you are trying. It only mirrors what state of being you are occupying now. And the state you are in at this moment is not the same as when you arrived. That shift did not require effort. It required exposure. This is why timing is irrelevant here. You did not find this message by accident, but not because of destiny in the dramatic sense. You found it because resonance organizes encounters. The field arranges contact points when frequencies align. You are here because something in you is already prepared to see what is being reflected back. Nothing needs to be done with this yet. No action is required. Trying to do something with recognition immediately only introduces interference. Let the field finish adjusting. Let the signal settle. The mind will want to categorize, judge, or anticipate outcomes. That urge is not wrong, but it is not necessary. The reorganization is already underway. This is the strange part most people miss. The shift happens first. The explanation comes later. And by the time the explanation arrives, the field has already moved. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. There is a misunderstanding so deeply embedded in human perception that it quietly shapes every experience without being questioned. The belief is that observation happens from a distance. That awareness looks out at reality without touching it. That you can witness without influencing. This belief is false. And the moment it dissolves, the way reality responds to you changes permanently. Observation is not a passive act. It is an interaction. The instant attention rests on anything, a relationship is formed. Awareness does not float above the field like a camera. It enters it. It presses into it. It selects from it. This is not philosophy. This is structure. The field responds to attention the way a mirror responds to light. What you focus on does not merely become clearer. It becomes more probable. This is why nothing you observe remains unchanged. The idea of neutral watching only exists because the effects are subtle and immediate, not dramatic and delayed. Awareness collapses possibilities the way pressure collapses space. Not by force, but by presence. When attention locks onto a frequency, all other frequencies recede. This is not choice. This is physics expressed through consciousness. The quantum field does not differentiate between curiosity, concern, or contemplation. It only registers coherence. Attention is coherence. It is the act of tuning. Wherever awareness stabilizes, probability reorganizes around it. This is why patterns repeat when they are watched with familiarity. This is why what you resist persists. This is why what you expect quietly confirms itself. The field is not responding to your thoughts. It is responding to your attention. Most people believe participation begins with action. In truth, participation begins with perception. Before movement. Before speech. Before decision. The moment something is noticed, it is already engaged. And because you cannot stop being aware, you cannot stop influencing. Even avoidance is a form of attention. Even denial is a form of focus. There is no outside position. This changes how responsibility is understood. Not as blame. Not as effort. But as placement of awareness. You are not responsible for controlling the field. You are responsible for where you rest your attention. The field does the rest. It always has. This is why trying to micromanage outcomes fails. Control scatters attention. Presence concentrates it. Once this is seen, the idea of passive consumption collapses. There is no such thing as watching without participating. There is no such thing as hearing without responding. The field updates continuously, and awareness is the input it reads most clearly. Not words. Not affirmations. Not plans. Awareness. This is also why the shift you felt earlier did not require agreement. It required contact. Observation alone was enough to initiate reorganization. The field does not need you to decide what something means. Meaning is a mental overlay. The field responds before meaning is assigned. You are not here to learn how to influence reality. You are here to recognize that you already are. And once that is recognized, attention becomes precise instead of accidental. Calm instead of scattered. Present instead of searching. Observation is never neutral. It is the quiet hand on the scale. There is a point where neutrality ends, and it is not where most people think. It does not end when you agree. It does not end when you believe. It ends when you stay. Continued attention is not passive time passing. It is a signal. And the field reads that signal with absolute clarity. You did not remain here because of logic. Logic comes later. You stayed because something in this frequency matched something already present within you. This is how resonance works. It is not persuasion. It is recognition. The field does not require conscious permission to respond. It only requires coherence. Staying is coherence. Most people assume consent is something they give mentally. A decision. A statement. An internal yes. But the quantum field does not interpret language. It interprets alignment. Attention sustained over time is alignment. And alignment is indistinguishable from consent at the energetic level. Not consent to an idea, but consent to an interaction. This is why the field does not ask why you are here. It does not analyze motivation. It does not measure intention. It simply registers that awareness has not withdrawn. That is enough. When attention remains, the field reads readiness. Not readiness to act, but readiness to receive a new configuration. This is the silent agreement most people never notice they are making. They believe they are choosing to stay intellectually, but the choice already happened at a deeper layer. You did not stay to figure this out. You stayed because the frequency felt familiar, even if the words did not yet make sense. Familiarity at this level is not memory. It is alignment. The mind often wants to claim authorship here. It wants to say, I decided to keep watching. But that story comes after the fact. The truth is simpler and more precise. Awareness recognized itself in what was being reflected, and it did not pull away. That lack of withdrawal is the agreement. This is why the field begins to reorganize without asking for confirmation. From its perspective, confirmation has already been given. Attention is the currency. Presence is the contract. The longer awareness remains coherent with a signal, the more the field adjusts around that coherence. Not dramatically. Not symbolically. Structurally. There is no pressure in this. No obligation. At any moment, attention can move. But while it remains, the field continues to respond. This is not about commitment. It is about resonance sustained long enough to register. The field does not chase. It mirrors. And right now, it is mirroring readiness. This reframes staying entirely. It is not patience. It is not discipline. It is not effort. It is alignment revealing itself through continuity. You are not holding on. You are simply not pulling away. And that subtle distinction changes everything. You are not being led. You are not being convinced. You are not being guided somewhere external. You are allowing a frequency that already matches you to continue unfolding. The agreement was never spoken. It was felt. And the field heard it the moment you stayed. Reality does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are emotionally broadcasting. Words are symbols layered on top of experience, but emotion is the signal itself. Before thought finishes forming, emotion has already instructed the field. This is not psychology. This is mechanics. Emotional coherence is the language reality understands without translation. Emotion is not a reaction to circumstances. It is a frequency state that precedes them. Every emotional tone you occupy is an instruction packet sent into the field, informing it how to arrange form, timing, and interaction. The field does not judge emotion as good or bad. It reads it as data. Expansion tells the field one thing. Contraction tells it another. And the field responds with precision. Expansion feels like openness, ease, clarity, curiosity, calm presence. Contraction feels like tightness, urgency, resistance, frustration, fear. These are not problems to fix. They are indicators. Expansion signals alignment between identity and moment. Contraction signals misalignment, not failure. The mistake most people make is trying to override these signals with affirmations, logic, or forced positivity. That creates noise. The field does not respond to noise. It responds to coherence. When emotion is coherent, reality reorganizes smoothly. When emotion is conflicted, reality fragments. This is why saying the right words while feeling the wrong state produces inconsistent results. The field does not hear the words. It reads the emotional posture beneath them. Emotion is the posture of consciousness within the moment. This reframes emotional awareness entirely. You are not meant to suppress contraction or chase expansion. You are meant to notice. Awareness of emotional state is already an adjustment. The moment emotion is seen clearly without resistance, coherence increases. Calm is restored not by force, but by recognition. This is the same principle you encountered earlier. Recognition reorganizes faster than effort ever could. The field is constantly updating around your emotional baseline, not your emotional spikes. What you feel briefly matters less than what you return to automatically. That resting emotional state is the instruction loop. And it is shaped not by circumstances, but by how you interpret your position within them. Identity sets the tone. Emotion carries the signal. This is why control fails here. Trying to force a different emotional state communicates mistrust to the field. It says, this moment is wrong. The field mirrors that assumption. Allowing emotion to be felt without resistance communicates safety. It says, this moment is workable. The field mirrors that too. Not symbolically. Structurally. Once this is understood, emotional sensitivity becomes power, not weakness. You stop arguing with your guidance system. You stop trying to feel what you think you should feel. You let emotion inform you, not command you. In that allowing, coherence naturally returns. The field responds immediately because the instruction has become clean. Like the video now as a confirmation that this recognition has landed. Forcing feels productive to the mind, but to the field it reads as distortion. Control is not strength in this system. It is interference. The moment you try to push reality into a shape prematurely, coherence breaks. Not because you did something wrong, but because force communicates a specific message to the field, mistrust. When you force an outcome, you are not accelerating alignment. You are declaring that the present configuration is insufficient. That declaration is not verbal. It is energetic. And the field mirrors it exactly. It responds by introducing resistance, delays, detours, and instability. Not as punishment, but as feedback. The field always reflects the state you are broadcasting. Effort is often confused with movement. But effort is tension applied against the current, not motion with it. The quantum field is not inert matter waiting to be pushed. It is a responsive system that reorganizes around coherence. When effort arises from calm clarity, it is not forcing. It is expression. When effort arises from urgency, fear, or impatience, it collapses timelines instead of opening them. This is where most people lose momentum without realizing why. They feel something is close, then tighten. They sense alignment, then try to secure it. That tightening introduces noise. The field registers the shift immediately. The smooth probability stream fractures, and what felt imminent suddenly feels distant. Not because it was taken away, but because the frequency changed. Allowing is often misunderstood as passivity. It is not. Allowing is precise non-interference. It is the decision to stop correcting what does not need correction. It is trust in the intelligence of alignment already in motion. When allowing replaces forcing, the field receives a clear signal, stability. And stability is what allows timelines to remain intact. Forcing always comes from a future-oriented identity. It assumes something must happen in order for you to be complete. That assumption is what collapses coherence. Allowing comes from present sufficiency. It assumes alignment is already functional. From that state, movement happens naturally. Not rushed. Not delayed. Exact. This is why timelines collapse under pressure. They are not fragile, but they are sensitive to interference. When you attempt to control the sequence, timing, or form, you introduce competing instructions. The field does not choose between them. It resolves the conflict by slowing, fragmenting, or redirecting. What feels like resistance is actually resolution. Nothing here is personal. The field is not reacting to your desires. It is responding to your state. Forcing says, I don't trust this moment. Allowing says, this moment is sufficient to carry me forward. The field mirrors whichever instruction is clearer. When you stop forcing, you do not lose momentum. You regain it. When you release control, you do not surrender power. You remove distortion. Alignment does not require management. It requires permission to complete itself. The paradox is simple. The more you try to secure an outcome, the more unstable it becomes. The more you allow the current configuration to be exactly as it is, the more smoothly reality reorganizes. Not by effort. By coherence. The idea of waiting is one of the most convincing illusions the mind has ever adopted. It suggests that something exists ahead of you in time, moving closer, preparing to arrive. But the quantum field does not operate on anticipation. It operates on correspondence. Nothing is approaching you. Nothing is delayed. What you call waiting is simply a gap between who you are being now and the state that matches what you are noticing. Linear time is a mental convenience, not a creation mechanism. It helps the mind sequence experience, but the field does not read sequences. It reads states. When something appears absent, it is not because time has not delivered it yet. It is because the identity state capable of receiving it is not currently active. The field is precise. It does not misplace outcomes. It mirrors alignment exactly. This is why waiting feels heavy. It carries an assumption that the present moment is incomplete. That assumption becomes the instruction. The field reflects it by maintaining separation. Not as punishment, but as consistency. The moment you believe something is on the way, you position yourself as someone who does not yet have it. The field agrees. It always does. Delay is not temporal. It is vibrational. It is not about how long something takes, but about whether the current identity matches the frequency of the experience being referenced. When there is a match, there is immediacy. When there is a mismatch, there is the sensation of distance. Time appears to stretch, but nothing has actually moved. This reframes patience entirely. Patience is not endurance. It is stabilization. It is the act of resting in an identity without checking for evidence. The moment checking stops, the sensation of waiting dissolves. Not because something arrived, but because the identity gap closed. The field responds instantly to that closure. This is why chasing outcomes extends timelines. Chasing implies absence. Monitoring implies doubt. Anticipation implies future dependence. All three communicate the same thing to the field: this moment is not sufficient. The field mirrors that message faithfully. It maintains the perception of not yet. Nothing you want exists in the future. It exists as a configuration accessible only through present coherence. The present moment is not a stepping stone. It is the access point. When identity stabilizes here, time collapses into relevance. What felt delayed reveals itself as immediately available, because it always was. This does not mean outcomes appear theatrically or all at once. It means the sense of waiting evaporates. Movement becomes natural. Timing becomes irrelevant. You stop asking when because you are no longer positioned as someone who is missing something. The myth of waiting collapses the moment you see it for what it is, a misinterpretation of identity lag. Nothing is being withheld. Nothing is catching up. The field is responding now, exactly as it always has, to who you are being now. Comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. Identity is not something you develop after results appear. Identity is the mechanism through which results become accessible at all. This is the switch most people never see. They believe manifestation is about creating something new through intention, repetition, or effort. But creation is not happening the way it appears. You are not generating realities. You are selecting from existing configurations through resonance. Nothing you experience is being built from scratch in response to desire. The quantum field already contains every viable configuration. What determines which one becomes visible is not what you want, but who you are being. Identity is the filter. It is the tuning mechanism that decides which timelines remain theoretical and which become lived experience. This is why effort-based manifestation feels exhausting. Effort assumes there is nothing to select yet. It assumes something must be produced. But production is unnecessary when selection is available. Selection happens automatically when identity stabilizes. You do not pull a timeline toward you. You step into the one that already matches your state. Resonance does not respond to desire. Desire is often rooted in absence. Resonance responds to familiarity. When an identity state feels natural, the field treats the corresponding timeline as accessible. When an identity state feels aspirational, the field treats it as distant. This is not judgment. It is calibration. This reframes manifestation completely. Instead of asking how to get something, the only relevant question becomes who would naturally experience this as normal. That question is not meant to be answered intellectually. It is meant to be felt. Identity is not a list of traits. It is a baseline sense of what is expected, allowed, and familiar. Selection happens the moment identity shifts, not when behavior changes. Behavior follows identity automatically. Trying to act like a future version of yourself without embodying its identity creates strain. The field reads that strain as incoherence. But when identity changes first, behavior reorganizes without effort, because it no longer contradicts the baseline state. This is why timelines seem to click into place suddenly. Nothing new was created. The filter changed. The moment the internal state matched the external configuration, access opened. What looked like manifestation was actually recognition. Recognition of a version of reality that had been available the entire time. You do not need to visualize endlessly. You do not need to convince yourself. You do not need to force belief. Identity does not shift through pressure. It shifts through familiarity. When something begins to feel inevitable rather than hopeful, selection has already occurred. The field responds immediately to that inevitability. This also explains why some things never arrive no matter how much effort is applied. The effort itself signals that the identity is still misaligned. Trying is proof that selection has not yet happened. When selection occurs, trying stops. Movement becomes simple. Choices feel obvious. The timeline no longer feels distant because you are no longer reaching for it. You do not manifest realities. You select them by being the version of consciousness that naturally occupies them. The moment this is seen, effort loses its grip. Identity becomes the work, and even that work dissolves into recognition. Discipline works by repetition. Recognition works by collapse. This is the distinction that changes everything. Discipline assumes that change must be built gradually through effort applied over time. Recognition bypasses time entirely. The moment something is truly seen, structure reorganizes instantly. Not emotionally. Structurally. Discipline is not wrong. It is simply slow. It relies on conditioning, reinforcement, and habit. It treats the self as something that must be trained into alignment. Recognition treats alignment as already present, waiting to be acknowledged. When recognition occurs, behavior does not need to be managed. It updates automatically because the internal reference point has shifted. This is why moments of sudden clarity can undo patterns that years of discipline could not touch. The pattern was never held in place by lack of effort. It was held in place by lack of awareness. The moment the underlying assumption is seen clearly, the behavior it generated loses its foundation. It does not need to be fought. It dissolves. Discipline operates from the assumption that you must become something different. Recognition operates from the realization that you were misidentifying yourself. One tries to add structure. The other removes distortion. The field responds far more efficiently to removal than addition. Noise clears faster than systems can be built. This is also why discipline often produces internal resistance. It asks the current identity to behave like one it does not yet recognize as itself. That creates friction. The field reads friction as incoherence. Progress becomes unstable. Momentum comes and goes. Recognition creates no friction because it does not demand change. It reveals truth. Behavior adjusts because it no longer makes sense to continue otherwise. Awareness is not passive observation here. It is structural realignment. When you recognize something at the identity level, the nervous system relaxes, emotional tone stabilizes, and attention reorganizes. The field reads this as a new baseline. From that baseline, different choices feel natural, not forced. This is transformation without effort. This does not mean discipline has no place. It means discipline only works when it follows recognition. When awareness has already shifted, discipline becomes expression rather than enforcement. Actions feel obvious. Consistency feels effortless. Without recognition, discipline is a constant negotiation against the self. The reason recognition is so powerful is because it changes what feels true. And what feels true governs behavior more strongly than what is believed intellectually. You do not act based on what you know. You act based on what you recognize as real. The field mirrors that recognition immediately. This is why transformation often feels anticlimactic. There is no dramatic struggle. No heroic effort. Just a quiet moment where something clicks, and what once required control no longer needs management. The system updates, and the old pattern loses relevance. Recognition does not ask you to do more. It asks you to see more clearly. And once clarity is present, the rest reorganizes on its own. Reality is not responding to what you want. It is responding to what you are being. This distinction dissolves the idea of reward and punishment entirely. Circumstances are not judgments. They are reflections. The field does not evaluate your worth or effort. It mirrors your identity state with precision. Most people interpret feedback personally. If something goes well, they feel validated. If something goes wrong, they feel corrected or denied. But the field is not personal. It is accurate. It reflects identity the way a mirror reflects posture. Not to approve or disapprove, but to show what is currently being held as normal. Who you are being is not who you think you are. It is who you expect to be reflected back. Expectation here is not conscious optimism or pessimism. It is the quiet baseline assumption about what usually happens, what tends to occur, what feels familiar. That baseline identity is what the field responds to. Circumstances simply echo it. This is why the same patterns repeat across different situations. Different people, same dynamic. Different locations, same outcome. The environment changes, but the reflection remains consistent. The field is not stuck. It is mirroring faithfully. And what it mirrors is identity, not desire. When this is misunderstood, feedback feels like resistance. When it is understood, feedback becomes guidance. Not guidance telling you what to do, but guidance revealing what state you are occupying. Every circumstance answers a single question with complete honesty: who am I being right now? This removes blame from the equation. There is no failure here. There is no punishment. There is information. Clean, immediate, accurate information. The field is constantly saying, this is the identity currently active. This is the assumption currently stabilized. This is what feels normal at this level of being. Trying to fight circumstances is like arguing with a mirror. You can push against the image, but the reflection will not change until the posture does. The field does not need to be convinced. It needs to be met with a different identity state. The moment that state shifts, the reflection updates automatically. This is why forcing external change rarely works. External change without internal shift creates temporary variation, not stability. The field will eventually restore coherence by reintroducing familiar patterns. Not to sabotage, but to realign reflection with identity. When identity shifts, circumstances follow without effort. Not because you made them change, but because the mirror adjusted. This is also why feedback often feels neutral once understood. It loses emotional charge. It becomes directional. You stop asking why something happened and start noticing what it reveals. The field mirrors who you are being with perfect neutrality. It does not exaggerate. It does not delay. It does not distort. It reflects identity in real time. When you read that reflection accurately, you no longer need to control outcomes. You let feedback guide alignment instead. This is not about fixing yourself. It is about seeing yourself clearly. The mirror is not the problem. It is the instrument. And once you know how to read it, reality stops feeling random and starts feeling responsive. Creation does not occur across time. It does not move from past to future. It does not wait for conditions to line up. Creation only happens here. now. Not as a moment on a timeline, but as a state of being that the field can respond to immediately. The present moment is not part of the process. It is the only access point. Past and future are overlays created by the mind to organize memory and anticipation. They are useful for navigation, but irrelevant to creation. The field does not read history. It does not project outcomes. It responds exclusively to the current configuration of identity, emotion, and awareness. Whatever state is active now is the only signal being transmitted. This is why revisiting the past does nothing to change reality. Memory has no creative power unless it is reactivated emotionally in the present. And even then, it is not the past that is influencing the field. It is the current emotional state attached to it. The same is true for the future. Imagining outcomes has no effect unless the imagined state becomes emotionally coherent now. Most people attempt to change reality by negotiating with time. They try to fix what already happened or prepare for what might happen. Both approaches miss the mechanism entirely. The field cannot respond to what is no longer here or what is not yet here. It can only respond to what is being broadcast in this moment. This is why effort aimed at future payoff often feels disconnected. The energy is split. Part of awareness is here, acting. Part of it is elsewhere, waiting. That division introduces incoherence. The field reflects that incoherence as delay or instability. Not because the action was wrong, but because the state was divided. Creation requires presence because presence is coherence. When awareness is fully here, identity stabilizes. When identity stabilizes, the signal becomes clean. When the signal is clean, the field reorganizes without resistance. This sequence does not take time. It requires alignment. The present moment is not something to focus on artificially. It is something to stop leaving. The moment you stop referencing past justification or future validation, you are here. And when you are here, creation is already active. Not because something dramatic happens, but because the field finally receives a single, undistorted instruction. This is also why stillness is so powerful. Not physical stillness, but internal stillness. The absence of mental time travel concentrates awareness. That concentration increases coherence. The field responds immediately, often subtly, because the signal has become precise. Nothing you want is locked in the future. Nothing you regret is stored in the past. Both only exist as present interpretations. Change the interpretation now, and the field updates now. Not symbolically. Structurally. This does not mean outcomes appear instantly in visible form. It means the configuration that produces them becomes active. The field begins rearranging probabilities the moment the present state shifts. Timing becomes a secondary effect, not a requirement. Creation cannot happen elsewhere because there is nowhere else. There is only the state you are occupying now, and the response it generates. When you stop outsourcing creation to time, you reclaim access to the only point where reality can actually move. Letting go is often misunderstood as giving something up, as if release requires loss. This misunderstanding is what makes letting go feel threatening. But nothing is being taken from you. Nothing is being removed. Letting go is not subtraction. It is recalibration. It is the restoration of natural alignment after distortion has been introduced by holding. Holding is not the same as caring. Holding is tension applied to an outcome, an identity, or a moment because it is believed to be necessary for stability. That belief is what creates distortion. The field does not respond well to tension. Tension communicates fear of collapse. It signals that trust has been withdrawn. And the field mirrors that signal by tightening circumstances, slowing movement, or introducing friction. Letting go does not mean abandoning intention. It means releasing the grip that interferes with coherence. When you stop holding, you are not saying something no longer matters. You are saying it no longer needs protection. That distinction changes the signal entirely. The field reads release as confidence, not resignation. Most people hold because they believe control ensures continuity. In reality, control fractures flow. The more tightly something is held, the more energy is spent maintaining its position. That energy does not move reality forward. It circulates as resistance. The field responds by matching that resistance with complexity and delay. When letting go happens naturally, it feels like relief, not loss. The nervous system relaxes. Attention softens. Identity stops bracing. In that relaxation, coherence returns. And coherence is what allows movement to resume. The field reorganizes because the instruction has become clear again. Trust is not blind faith here. It is structural confidence. Trust means recognizing that alignment does not require constant supervision. The field does not forget what is coherent. It does not need reminders. It needs permission to complete its response without interference. Letting go is that permission. This is why release often precedes visible change. Not because release causes the change directly, but because it removes the obstruction that was preventing it. Holding was never stabilizing the outcome. It was delaying it. Letting go removes the delay. There is also a deeper layer here. Letting go often feels difficult because identity has attached itself to the outcome. The self-image becomes intertwined with a particular result. Releasing the result feels like releasing the self. But that is an illusion. Identity is not maintained by outcomes. It is revealed through alignment. When alignment is restored, identity becomes more stable, not less. Letting go does not erase direction. It clarifies it. When the noise of holding fades, intuition becomes audible again. Choices feel simpler. Movement feels less forced. The field responds smoothly because it is no longer compensating for interference. Nothing meaningful is lost through letting go. Only distortion dissolves. What remains is what was always aligned. Flow resumes not because something new was added, but because something unnecessary was removed. This is not sacrifice. It is return. There is a moment when effort becomes the obstacle instead of the engine. It arrives quietly, often mistaken for stagnation or loss of momentum. But this moment is not a failure of movement. It is the signal that resistance has been doing the work effort was trying to accomplish. When effort stops at the right point, motion does not slow. It accelerates. Stillness is misunderstood because it is confused with inactivity. Aligned stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of interference. When effort is driven by urgency, fear, or the need to control sequence and timing, it introduces friction into the field. That friction consumes energy without producing flow. The system appears busy, but nothing moves cleanly. The field does not require constant input. It requires coherence. When resistance is present, coherence fragments. When resistance dissolves, coherence returns. And coherence is what allows the field to move outcomes rapidly without force. Motion that arises from alignment does not feel dramatic. It feels inevitable. This is why the most significant shifts often occur after you stop trying to make them happen. Not because giving up creates results, but because effort was compensating for misalignment. Once alignment stabilizes, compensation is no longer necessary. The field responds immediately because the signal is no longer distorted. Effort stops naturally when trust returns. Trust here is not emotional comfort. It is structural knowing. It is the recognition that the current configuration does not need correction. When you stop adjusting, monitoring, and pushing, attention settles. That settling concentrates energy. Concentrated energy moves faster than scattered effort ever could. This is the paradox most people struggle to accept. Doing less at the right moment produces more movement than doing more from misalignment. The mind resists this because it equates effort with value. But the field equates coherence with speed. The two are not the same. When resistance is removed, the field no longer has to compensate. It no longer has to reroute, slow, or stabilize competing instructions. Motion becomes direct. Outcomes line up not because they were chased, but because nothing is blocking their expression. This does not mean you stop acting. It means action stops being strained. Action becomes responsive instead of corrective. You move when movement is natural. You pause when pause is coherent. There is no forcing either direction. The field handles sequencing automatically when interference is absent. Aligned stillness feels calm, not empty. There is a sense of quiet readiness, not waiting. This is how you know resistance has been removed. There is no urgency to push and no anxiety about delay. Motion is already occurring beneath the surface, reorganizing structure before form becomes visible. The acceleration that follows often feels sudden to the mind, but it is not sudden to the field. It is the result of friction being removed. What was already in motion is finally allowed to complete itself. When effort stops because alignment is present, motion does not need encouragement. It moves because it can. There is a final inversion that resolves everything you have been exploring so far. It is not an idea to adopt, but a recognition to allow. You are not a body inside a world, interacting with a field from within it. You are the awareness within which the field appears. This is not metaphor. This is structural. The subject-object split is the root distortion behind effort, control, waiting, and force. The belief that you are located somewhere inside reality creates the illusion that reality is something you must influence from a distance. From that assumption, all struggle arises. But when this assumption collapses, the mechanics you have been moving through reorganize into simplicity. You are not inside the field observing it. The field is appearing within awareness. That awareness is not personal. It is not owned by the body or generated by the mind. The body and the mind appear within it. Thoughts arise within it. Sensations arise within it. Emotions arise within it. And the field itself arises within it. This changes what interaction means. You are not sending signals into the field from a location within it. The field is a modulation within consciousness itself. There is no distance for influence to travel. No separation for effort to bridge. Reality does not need to be affected. It is already occurring within what you are. This is why recognition has been the recurring mechanism throughout everything you have encountered. Recognition is not a tool used by a person. It is consciousness noticing its own movement. When that noticing happens, structure reorganizes because the misidentification dissolves. The field responds because the one it is appearing within has stopped misreading itself as separate. From this perspective, alignment is not something you achieve. It is something that is revealed when the false reference point drops away. Control was never necessary because there was never a gap to manage. Waiting was never required because nothing was elsewhere. Forcing was never effective because nothing needed to be pushed. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. Action still happens. Choice still appears. Emotion still moves. But they are no longer driven by the belief that you are a fragment trying to navigate an external system. They arise as natural expressions within a unified field of awareness. When you see this clearly, effort relaxes without instruction. Identity stabilizes without construction. Presence becomes natural because there is nowhere else to be. The field reorganizes because the primary distortion has been removed. Not corrected. Removed. You do not need to hold this concept. Holding turns it into another object. Simply notice that awareness is already here, already functioning, already containing everything you have been trying to influence. This noticing does not create something new. It reveals what has been constant. From here, reality no longer feels like something happening to you. It feels like something happening within you. Not the personal you. The aware you. And in that recognition, the need to manage the field dissolves, because the field has never been separate from what you are. Nothing about you is broken. The impulse to fix yourself did not come from truth. It came from a misinterpretation. The belief that something needs improvement assumes that wholeness is a future state rather than the foundation. And that assumption quietly sustains misalignment. Fixing implies separation. It suggests there is a flawed version of you that must be corrected before alignment is allowed. The field reads that assumption clearly. It mirrors the belief by maintaining distance between who you are and what feels complete. Not as resistance, but as consistency. The field always reflects the identity state being held. Wholeness is not a reward. It is the starting condition. You did not become incomplete through experience. Experience layered interpretations on top of wholeness. Those interpretations created tension, effort, and striving. But none of them altered the underlying structure. You have always been intact. The field has always known this, even when you forgot. The improvement paradigm keeps attention pointed toward a future self. A better version. A healed version. A more aligned version. But alignment does not respond to future orientation. It responds to present recognition. The moment you assume you must become something else, you step out of coherence. The field mirrors that by keeping completion out of reach. This is why self-improvement often feels endless. Each correction reveals another flaw to address. Not because flaws are infinite, but because the lens being used is distortion-based. Looking for what is wrong guarantees it will be found. The field reflects that search faithfully. Nothing needs to be fixed because nothing fundamental was damaged. Patterns can be seen. Misidentifications can dissolve. Tension can release. But none of that requires repair. It requires clarity. When clarity returns, alignment follows naturally, without effort or intervention. Trying to fix yourself is another form of control. It is the attempt to manage identity rather than recognize it. Recognition is always gentler and faster than correction. Correction assumes resistance. Recognition removes it. The field responds immediately to the absence of resistance. This does not mean growth stops. Growth simply stops being driven by inadequacy. It becomes expression rather than compensation. Movement still occurs, but it is no longer fueled by the belief that something is missing. The field mirrors this shift by stabilizing rather than oscillating. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means completeness. It means nothing essential is lacking. When this is recognized, urgency dissolves. Comparison loses relevance. The need to become relaxes. And in that relaxation, alignment becomes sustainable rather than fleeting. Nothing needs to be fixed because nothing was ever outside the field's intelligence. You were never misaligned at the core. Only misidentified. When that misidentification loosens, the system rebalances itself without force. The field does not require improvement to respond. It requires coherence. And coherence returns the moment you stop treating yourself as a problem to solve and recognize yourself as the ground from which experience is arising. You are not where you were when this began. Not because something dramatic happened, but because recognition has already done its work. The field does not wait for conclusions. It responds to shifts in coherence. And coherence has shifted. Quietly. Precisely. Irreversibly. Nothing new needed to be added for this to occur. No technique was applied. No effort was sustained. The reorganization happened because misalignment was removed layer by layer through seeing. Each recognition loosened interference. Each moment of clarity reduced noise. And as the signal cleaned itself, the field adjusted automatically. This is how timelines change. Not through force or intention, but through identity settling into a different baseline. You did not move forward in time. You stabilized into a different configuration of now. And from this configuration, different probabilities are active by default. The mind may still look for evidence. It may scan circumstances, sensations, or thoughts to confirm that something has shifted. That reflex is natural, but unnecessary. Evidence always lags behind alignment. The field reorganizes first. Form follows later. What matters is not what you see yet, but what no longer feels strained. Notice what has softened. Notice what no longer requires management. Notice what questions have fallen quiet instead of being answered. These are signs of timeline transition. Not fireworks. Not certainty. Stability. A sense that something is no longer being chased. You are standing in a probability space where effort is no longer the driver. Where forcing feels irrelevant. Where waiting feels unnecessary. Where control has lost its urgency. That does not mean action stops. It means action arises from coherence instead of compensation. Nothing here needs to be protected. Nothing needs to be held in place. The field is already responding to the state you are occupying now. And this state is different from before, even if the mind cannot yet articulate how. Recognition does not need narration to be effective. This is why there is no instruction at the end of this. No practice to repeat. No behavior to maintain. The shift was never about doing. It was about seeing. And once something has been seen clearly, it cannot be unseen. The field adjusts around that clarity permanently. You are not waiting for a future version of yourself to arrive. You are not preparing to become aligned. You are already standing in the alignment that matches what you were ready to recognize. From here, movement will feel simpler. Timing will feel less relevant. Feedback will feel clearer. Not because reality changed its rules, but because you stopped misreading them. Let whatever unfolds do so without interference. You do not need to monitor this timeline. You are already in it. And the field knows exactly how to respond from here. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.